to James May Talks Too Much, brought to you by North Spokane Apothecary. You can go to their website in the description below, get yourself a 20% discount with the code SPREADEAGLE. One word. But today, I got Lloyd Morris. He is a Army veteran and also the 7th District of Washington representative for the Libertarian Party. Did I get that correct?
I am the Region 7 rep, I guess, is the correct title. But yeah, you got pretty good, man. I know it's a mouthful, so.
Yeah. So tell everybody what that is to start off.
Okay, so I am a member of the Libertarian Party, both nationally and also on the state level for Washington, of course. I'm the Region 7 rep, so that includes Spokane County and Lincoln County and everything north of it, basically going to the Canadian border. So if there are like local libertarians or who are running for certain, like say like city council in those counties, and they want to get like the party endorsement, they probably want to reach out to me if they need help like campaigning or reaching out to other libertarians in the state. You know, I'm kind of like the conduit for those individuals, or even for anybody who just, I'm down to talk libertarianism any day of the week, which is of course why I'm here.
Like
so yeah,
part of the party, you're the guy to hit up.
Sure, for anyone who's we used this term before, liberty curious. If you have any, yeah, that was one of the girls in the state party had used that term. I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that.
Yeah,
and I think we got Drew liberty curious over here.
A little bit, yeah, for sure, a little bit.
Sure.
Do you guys have any like upcoming events I should hear about?
Well, we had the event last week, which I'm really bummed. But by the way, I meant to ask: Are you okay with your ribs and stuff, man?
Yeah. I've been you can ask Drew. I've been bitching about it for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I bet it doesn't feel good.
One.
So I'm a shooter. That's kind of what got me into politics initially. So last week, I conducted, with the help of a guy named Scott over at Micah Valley Gun Works out in Micah, Washington, and we had a range day for the Libertarian of Washington, and we had like a 1-hour kind of basic firearm safety handling class, and I taught like a 1-hour first aid, like gunshot wound type of class, using some of the skills I learned in the Army, kind of passing it on. So I kind of thought of it because, like, again, I'm a shooter, right? So that's kind of what got me into politics. It's not the only thing I'm passionate about in regards to politics, but I feel like I can bring at least that aspect to help bring more people to the party, to let them know, like, hey, there is another party. We're not quite as big as like the Republican Party, but hey, we like guns. We care about gun rights. I'd even argue that we care about gun rights more than Republicans do, and trying to. And a big thing too is trying to reach out locally. Like, I want to reach out locally. Like, a lot of times, every 4 years when we have a libertarian candidate running for president, I see the argument online is like, well, why don't you guys do things more on like the state or local levels? It's like, well, we do, but we don't have any money, so it's hard to get that exposure.
It's everyday people who are fighting for.
Sure, and you don't have the for lack of a better word, the sponsorship of being a Democrat or the Republicans who are going to give you the money that you need to get campaign posters and billboards and maybe a commercial and stuff like that.
They take money from big business.
Well, they take money from us too. As taxpayers, even at the state level, there is campaign funds used for the parties, and of course at the federal level, when Trump or Biden go out and on these campaign runs, that's not their own money that they're pulling up. I mean, certainly they're getting some of it is money they're getting from donors, but some of it too is taxpayers' money. Because some of the way that the whole campaign funding works, it's like a matching process. So depending on how much money they raise, the federal government will match to a certain degree. And I don't know all the specifics of it, but some of that is paid by us.
Real quick, Lloyd, you get on different points so quickly.
Sorry, man.
No, you. I wanted to tell you a funny story. Me and Drew went hiking earlier, and like, I'm still like borrowing like. I don't want to talk too much about it, but
you're good, man.
Drew walked into a room and he was like, "Yo, is that a gun ready to be loaded?"
It's his pistol. It's a 9mm. Just sitting right on the side of his bed. It's cocked back. It's ready to go.
Just like all I have to do is slide the clip in, or it's the clip, not
magazine, whatever. I mean,
my mom got really big on me. She was like, "Don't look like a fucking moron."
This is funny. It's talking. I just pulled up a page and it's talking about which presidential candidate has the fundraising advantage, because you were just talking about how you guys have a little fundraising or money in general, and Biden's at 990 million, and Trump is at 1.33 billion. That is what you're fighting right now.
Now ask me how much you think Joe Jorgensen has
I'm gonna
raised.
say maybe 70.
1 mil?
Not
No
even. I don't even
way.
think $1 million, honestly, man.
I
700.
donated.
I don't.
I
Well, sure.
donated.
So have I.
I mean, I only
there's-
had a little bit to give, but
Well, sure.
I tried.
Like, that's all we're asking, man. Like, we ask for all the help we can get. We don't look at it like, you got to do this much. Every bit helps. If you donate $10, guess what? You still did more for the party than 99% of Americans did. You know what I mean?
So, all right, your big thing, obviously, is being the campaign runner in Spokane.
Yeah, I'm also the Joe Jorgensen Spokane County coordinator for her campaign. So I'm the go-to guy if somebody wants like some Joe Jorgensen swag, like shirts or yard signs or
So,
posters or whatever.
my question there is, like, she's not gonna. No, it's not even a question. This is my statement. I'm a libertarian. She's not gonna win. So how? I guess the main question is, how do we change that in your mind?
So this year it's important, right? Because there's basically like this 5% threshold that exists for both.
What's that?
It exists for the state of Washington and on the federal level. So at the state level, if Joe gets 5% of votes from Washingtonians, then we don't have to do ballot access to get libertarian candidates on the ballot. This year we had to get 1,000 signatures during a pandemic to get Joe on the ballot. In the future, we won't have to do that. Correct.
So that holds
Joe
the ballot
Jorgensen.
slot for the next election.
Well, basically,
Just in Washington,
it's kind of
though?
every state's kind of different. I can only speak specifically for Washington. There are
Okay.
other states where they've already secured ballot access, whether that's because that state constitution allows whatever party to run. Some states you just pay money. You don't have to have signatures. That's how Kanye has been able to get in certain states, right? I think Oklahoma, you can pay like $20,000 and be on the ballot. Mathematically,
we got
Of
the
course,
money.
that's,
sure. So now, so not to get too far into Kanye, but his campaign is now seeing the difficulties of getting on the ballot in all 50 states because mathematically you have to be able to do it. You don't have to do it in all 50 states, but you got to at least be able to do it in the big states to
At
win.
least 25%
And so even if
of them.
even if Kanye wins in every single state that he's on the ballot, he still won't win the presidency, right? Joe is the only other candidate besides Biden and Trump who is on all 50 states. So
you
that's
guys
cool.
did get her on all 50
yeah, we're on all
That's
50
fucking
states.
dope.
That's good to know.
So another thing too is that if we get the 5% in Washington, it opens us up to basically being a major party in this state.
Okay.
So we also will get some campaign funding, right? So we were talking about before, campaign funds are, some of it is donations and some of it is taxpayers' money.
Okay.
So let's say if Joe gets that 5% in 2024, we will get some money from the state of Washington to campaign with. As to how much that money is, I'm not sure because I think it's like a matching type of thing depending on how much you raise. And there's all these rules and it's way above my pay grade. But it's
I
more
like that.
it's more
I know I'm dumb.
it's the steps, but we're kind of paving the road to making the LP, the Libertarian Party,
A
a
little bit
major
more on the
legitimate party.
Yeah.
And if she gets it federally, we don't have to do the ballot access petitioning signature thing anywhere.
So
We will be
what's
on-
the percentage that she needs to get on it?
To get that?
federally. Yeah.
5%. Of the
5%.
popular vote, mind you. Not so
Not no fucking electoral college.
no.
Okay.
No. Which would no. It just needs to be 5% of the vote. Now, So in
that might be a
2024
reason.
Yeah, looking
Two-
down the road, where does this head?
sure. So like that's kind of like one of the arguments I
Wait,
make.
real quick. I got a point.
Sure.
So that might be a reason because I've talked to a lot of libertarians. They are definitely like, it's like, well, what am I doing, type of thing.
Yeah, are we just banging our heads against the wall, voting for a candidate that we know that's not going to win, and then we're going to do it again every 4 years
I
and hope that
think-
one day that America.
Repeat,
I mean,
yeah.
come on, no.
No,
There
but-
is. We have I won't.
But this is a great thing to know. If we get that 5%,
I tell people that all the time, and I
it
feel
changes things.
yeah, and I feel like it's a point that's
first
not
step.
argued enough. So I try to bring that up because it's also very hard to put it in like a hashtag, right? get Joe to 5%, so
5%,
FEC, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to bring that
Not many
up.
people are going to understand that at the
And
at a wider level.
And also understand, even we as libertarians, we're also suspect too, because even when we meet certain thresholds that the governments want, they find ways to change the rules. You know what I mean? So
Those are
I
the
don't.
Other parties you think fighting against your rise?
There's other parties fighting.
is.
Oh, 100%. Not just libertarians.
Well,
Well,
how do you expect to fight parties who are working with 990 million and 1.33 billion?
so we have to. So
That's
if there's.
the issue.
That is the biggest.
So if there's like a minimum threshold that we have to get, we have to go above and beyond. And I'm glad you brought that topic up. So let's rewind 4 years ago. In the state of Washington, we had Trump, we had Hillary, and we had Gary Johnson. We had Gary Johnson running for the Libertarian Party, okay?
He made a little bit of headway that year.
Gary?
I got it. Like, he made some headway.
Yeah,
I
of
gotta
course
give it
for
to
his
him.
Aleppo gaffe, which we can get into another time.
No.
But I will argue.
Headway at least.
Well, sure.
We were in the news as a party at least this time.
When and I know we're kind of getting off topic. I want to get back to what.
Yeah.
But talking about Gary real quick, in 2012, the party got 1% of the popular vote in the U.S. In 2016, we got 3.2% of the popular vote.
Were
in
you
the
in
US.
all 50 states in either of those elections?
I know in 2016 for sure. I'm not
sure?
sure about 2012. I wasn't quite involved with the party at that time.
Fair.
But just historically, if we're looking at past data, we know we're rising, right? So I feel confident Joe's going to get 5% in Washington. I'm hopeful she'll get it on the federal level. So 4 years ago, Gary Johnson ran his campaign. He got the 5% in Washington, right? Okay. Kim Wyman, who is the Secretary of State in Washington, who's a Republican, mind you, okay? She's the one who is in charge of the whole voting aspect here in Washington. You'll see her name on the ballots and stuff, because Kim Wyman, the Secretary of State, is a Republican, right? I'm bringing that up because Olympia is mostly Democratic, okay?
Okay.
Gary got the 5%. Well, she changed it to where they went back and counted every handwritten ballot, which historically Washington State had not done before. That brought us down from 5% to 4.85%, under the threshold by a Republican in a Democratic state. Okay? They don't want to see us become a major party because they know Republicans, especially younger ones, who align to certain conservative ideas are going to be like, well, I'm not into religion and God, and I'm not into Trump. The Libertarians are looking pretty cool, and they're starting to kind of make a push. Because like, as we gain legitimacy and more younger people see it, I think it's going to kind of bring that, we're going to be part of the revolution. You know what I mean? I kind of saw
like a target year to where that 5% increases to 20% and then 40% or... Yeah.
No, you're right. No. That's me and him were talking the other day, and 2024 is our year. Like, this is the push. Like, this is the time.
I would say more 2032 almost.
I would argue.
It's going to be a little bit longer.
I don't
know.
know.
It's hard to say.
Are seen as.
It's hard to say.
Maybe I'm a little like
optimistic.
Optimistic.
Yeah.
It is hard to say because
they've been fucking up. You gave me Biden or Trump. What the fuck you doing?
I know.
Like, I think there's a lot of people out there.
Most Americans are fed up.
Yep,
they're fed up.
I would agree.
We're sitting here like
it's our time at least.
Well, I don't know how. If we're gonna argue that like we're the greatest country in the world, well, why is it in 4 years we keep getting worse and worse candidates to represent our great country at the highest level? You know what I mean? And I think the Libertarian Party has been around, I think, since '71. That's been a long time, right? And it's been a hard fight. And until I really got involved with the party, which has only been like the past 6 months, I didn't realize how small and grassroots it is, right? It's like 99% volunteers. And so it's like we got to volunteer our time, and most people aren't into politics. It's hard to get people to want to do things like go to sine waves or pass things out. So it's tough. People are saying like, well, how come you haven't done more things on the local level or state level? We are. And I think this year we're seeing tons of Libertarian candidates on the ballot. In certain states, we have Libertarians running against incumbents. In Arkansas, Ricky Harrington is running against the incumbent who is a Republican. So the only votes you can have are either the Republican or the Libertarian. out
Fuck
in
yeah.
Pacific County, Washington. There's a guy, Dan Driscoll, running locally against I think it's city council. He was on the call yesterday with the LPWA meeting,
Yeah.
looking for the endorsement, which of course he got. He is on the ballot as a Libertarian for Pacific County against nothing but Democrats. And those are your two choices. There is no Republican.
So you guys are definitely you're in
So
the battle
there's
now.
more of it happening.
Yeah.
And we were talking
That's pretty
earlier
cool.
about generations and how the younger generations are being more exposed, because of social media and computer use, internet.
yeah.
That hey,
We're
there
looking
is
for
some,
another
there is
side, I can tell you that much.
sure, because
A
like,
lot of people are.
well,
You youngins.
every generation experiences a little more freedom than the previous one. I will say on a bigger scale, right? Because
Yeah.
like if let's say if this
We're
was
always
if this was
trying to get
1950s and we were bad mouthing the president and all this stuff, you could have the neighborhood watch throwing freaking Molotovs in your house, even though you're allowed to do that, right? Like you can argue if you were a certain color to even be on camera right now would have been super taboo, right? Now we're just like that's craziness, right? I would
That's
argue
how I would think.
that overall we're getting a little more freedom conscious in certain ways. Like we were talking about at least the tobacco age being raised, which is of course arguing against things that make us free. But I think at least the freedom experience for Americans is bigger
Individualized
because
freedom, yeah,
well
I could see
you're
that.
exposed more to it with the internet and
Yeah.
television. Before you didn't know, you had to read the newspaper. Now, especially for the younger generation, you see it every fucking day.
Oh,
If you have a
Every
smartphone
day.
or if you have a
Instagram.
social media account, you can't
Everywhere.
even get away
You don't
from
escape
it.
it.
You
Yeah.
can't get away from it.
And then it's your friends talking about it to you too, because you're subscribed to their pages and they got opinions.
So I'd like to go back talking about strategy because I actually got to ask our VP candidate Spike Cohen a question last week.
I do not know who that is, unfortunately.
You should, because he's actually super well spoken and super intelligent, man. And I was very impressed talking to him and listening to what he had to say. But I asked him about the strategy going forward, like how can we bring VLP to be like a major party? How can we get more mainstream attention so that people know that we are a legitimate party and we do want to fight for the rights of every individual, regardless of your age or race or skin color or religion or whatever, all those things. But I asked him about long-term strategy, and we had mentioned before about the campaign funding being split up. He actually said that we should take all that money and give it back to the community. Because he argued that money was stolen from taxpayers in the first place, and we would do more good to give it to, say, a charity than to spend it on buying billboards and to keep this political machine churning, right? Which I thought was an interesting.
Beautiful thought, but I mean,
I
you
thought it was an
can't-
interesting perspective, right?
Yeah,
And then you can
it
say to the media, well, hey, what are the other parties doing with our taxpayers' money? They're spending it for bus tours and for all this other crap. We're giving it actually back to the community. And that's my idea. What I want to do to the party is showing like, hey, we're just regular, everyday Americans.
who
Some of us
really
just
want
kind of
the
fed
best
up.
for everyone. Yeah.
Fed up. I look at it. I've got a daughter. She's a year and a half. I want things to be better for her. I don't want it to where by the time she graduates, whatever crazy type of public school system we might end up having at that point, that it's going to cost $500,000 for her to get a decent education, and then by the time that she's done, it's going to cost almost $1 million to have a house because nobody's talking about things like the debt. The national debt getting bigger. No one's talking about things about the Federal Reserve keeps printing out more money, especially this year.
Instead,
right?
we want free college. and
Instead, we want all these things. Well, where does it come from?
Exactly.
It has to come from somewhere. But our government has created this illusion that there's just this big cookie jar that we can just pull out of whenever we want because that's what we've been doing for 50 plus years. And the Libertarian parties and the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian candidates are the only ones talking about this. The Republicans and the Democrats don't even bring up this debt crisis that we're in. And I will argue, like, I'm not just like, I don't like Trump. And it's not just like, I'm not just orange man bad, I'm not, what is it, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome.
No.
I think there's certain things he did were good. But he has added basically $1 trillion to the debt every year he's been in office. And no one wants to really talk about this. And this is debt that we're going to hear. He's going to be dead by the time we got to worry about it and our kids got to worry about it. He doesn't care.
CNN would talk about
Most
that
of
shit.
Congress doesn't care. They're going to be dead. They're all old. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about that Social Security is going to come crashing down by the time we're eligible because they're going to be dead. They're not going to care.
Since we're talking about politics real quick,
Yeah.
and I want to have a word. Lloyd.
Sure.
What? Okay, so if there's you understand what happens if there's a divide in who won the election, correct?
When you say divide, are you talking about like the extreme end of it, of people like going crazy civil war, or just like, well, either side going crazy if they don't get the candidate that they want?
Well, just if there's somebody saying no, you didn't win, just like a discrepancy.
I
That's
mean,
the word I
That would
was
be
looking
more
I
of a
would-
discrepancy, I'd
So
say that.
this year's been weird, in regards to like the arguments about voter fraud and weird things happening with
No,
people's
exactly,
ballots and stuff like that.
No, that's.
I
but
hope-
you know what happens.
Yeah,
What happens if nobody can claim like winning?
I don't
Do you
know. Well, I think about like in 2000, right, when George Bush went against Al Gore, and it had to go to the Supreme Court because Florida was contested about the ballots. And maybe you guys don't remember because you're probably too young.
No,
but
I
basically,
remember.
the Supreme Court had to decide the president ultimately. Can't remember all the little details, but it was that close of an election that they had to
there
actually
was
have a judge
some
decide.
Fucked up shit.
So, I don't know. I mean,
no, I'm just asking you if you know what legally happens.
Again, I think that it
A little
would be
above
the
your
Supreme
pay
Court.
grade?
I think it would have to go to some Supreme Court, and I don't know if what had
You
happened
wanna
in
know?
2000.
You want to know?
You got an answer?
Yeah.
Let's hear
No,
it.
I set you up.
Oh, okay.
President Nancy Pelosi.
Oh yeah, I did hear about something like that.
No,
yeah.
that's what happened.
Because it goes to whoever the House Speaker is, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
no,
heard. I did hear something about
I've
that.
never heard that.
But I don't-
Why would that even be a?
That's how their.
It's kind of the
government
weird that
works.
the rules in like regards.
So would that happen before the Supreme Court decides?
I don't think so.
So-
I don't
Yeah,
think
would
so in
that would
today's
step-
day and age.
yeah.
But
There
I think.
definitely has to be someone.
But personally, I think I think Trump's just gonna win like in a landslide. I don't think it's gonna be any contest. I don't think it's gonna be a contest. Really, I don't. I don't think it's gonna be.
Realize that,
I don't
right?
think it's an. I don't. I mean, we can play this what if game all day long, but I think come November 3rd or 4th or whatever when they decide that it's not gonna be a contest.
Do you think that's best for your party in the next 4 years? Do you think
Yeah.
that will drive more people towards
Yeah.
the
For
libertarian
Trump to get elected as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah.
Biden.
Yeah, I do. I personally do.
It's
I think it would.
It's a
I
tough
personally
tough
do.
argument, right? Like, because on one hand, like we had talked about that. One of the things that we've been doing is this nationwide text banking campaign to see, kind of get our finger on the pulse of the nation to see how people are voting. Because the question is like, hi, I'm Lloyd and I work for Joe Jorgensen for president. Well, with Trump, Biden, and Jorgensen as the candidates, who would you like to see? And
Real
we
quick.
get these answers back, and I get feedback from it. And I get lots of, I am a libertarian, or I am very libertarian leaning, but I have to pick Trump this election because, and then whatever their reason is.
Biden's so bad.
Whether it's so I've heard
That is- yeah, that's
Biden
probably
is
one
going
of
to
the
take
main
our
points.
guns. Biden is going to give us socialism.
What, you want Kamala?
I've heard a lot of things.
I'd
you
rather
know?
be on the good side. Yeah, I could see that view.
So I mean,
Definitely.
it's
Like that's my issue. I want to go vote for Jurgensen so bad.
It's just
But-
hard because if the Republicans win, then
It's gonna be a lot better than what Joe and Kamala do to us.
so at least for Washington. At least for
No,
Washington.
Kamala's gonna run the shit too if Biden gets
Well,
elected.
if Biden wins, I think it's only going to be a year or two before he steps down because mentally he's not going to
that's
be
the
able.
main thing, and then
And they're just going
it's
to
a
shoehorn
puppet,
in,
yeah.
first,
The
first
vice
woman
president.
president and first president, or woman
And
president
then
of
we
color.
don't even see the pandering.
But to back up a little bit,
Yeah, go on.
I will argue, at least like in the state of Washington, Biden's going to take the state.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. it's
I will
useless.
argue that, and I think most people feel the same way. So I'll argue that the vote for Trump is wasted if you want to see a third party, if you want to see the Libertarian Party to come to rise, because Joe Jorgensen is the only candidate where the popular vote counts, right? It's winner take all in Washington. You can vote for Trump, but we know Biden's going to win. But if you vote for Joe, that counts towards that 5%.
Dude, will you look up electoral colleges, Drew?
Yes, sir.
Like state by state, because like the new arguments to get rid of the electoral college. How do you feel?
That's been a discussion for years. People have always talked
No,
about
no.
I'm
I in college, at one point, I was totally down to get rid of it, and now I see why that's dumb personally.
So I'm glad you brought this up, because when Jo Jorgensen came to Spokane and we had like a little luncheon, I had lunch with her, and I actually asked her a question regarding the Electoral College and what personally I would like to see happen to it. I don't want to see it abolished.
Okay.
But the states of, excuse me. Oh man, I'm getting gassy from this beer.
Oh, you're fine.
The states
No,
of
Toke.
Dude, my dog loves beer. Maine and Nebraska their states are different in regards to elections, right? They're not winner take all.
Okay.
Ah, yes.
They're broken up, and I don't know all the specific rules because they're not the same for each state, but basically it's done by districts.
The district system. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
So in Maine, and again, I don't know all the details, but let's just say for sake of argument that there's 10 electoral votes in Maine. If, say, Maine generally votes Democrat, they could say have seven votes go Democrat and 3 go Republican.
yeah, it's
No,
pretty much
that's-
just
Okay.
split by there.
I felt that was a better representation of the
completely
U.S.
is.
Plus, it's kind of like a fair balance, right? Because
Exactly.
like
Look
they
at-
say,
look at
well,
our
the
state.
popular vote never wins and blah 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 blah. You're right, you know, and
It's
we've
a
seen
nice
this over and over.
compromise.
It is a compromise.
I
like
agree.
it.
Like, look at the state of Washington, for example.
With
I
the
know.
West Coast
I think
compared to
it's.
the- yeah,
I think
Spokane
it's.
and
I
Seattle.
think Washington gets either 12 or 13
But it's a definite
electoral votes.
split.
We
between
know
the-
Biden's going to win, right? But let's say, for example, well, what if we had this system? Then we know that, like, say, 7 would go, or I'm sorry, like 8 or whatever would go to Biden, and the remaining 4 would go to Trump. Or what if we have a libertarian candidate? What if we have a district that goes gold? Then we could potentially have, in the state of
Yeah, that
Washington,
changes your system,
one
too. I like
gold
that.
vote, right? Which is nothing in the scheme of things, right?
But it
But
gets
on
your voice out
election
there.
night, exactly, people are going to go, what the hell is this gold thing doing here, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of like, if you know who Justin Amash is, he's the congressman in Michigan who's a libertarian. He's the only libertarian on the federal level.
See, this is what I'm telling
Right?
Drew. We're making our
So
fucking
people look and
points.
see like, well, what's this one gold thing here, right? That was my argument against, again, I thought it was some type of compromise. I always
I
kind of
like
look at
it. I like that.
when I argue politics, man, it's like I understand shit's not always black and white, and that's the problem what we have today, right? With this two-party system.
Oh,
it's
it's
trying
blue
to
or-
create
it's blue-
trying
blue
to
or
create
red.
it's trying to create binary choices, which sometimes don't have to be binary, you know. I always kind of look for a good little compromise solution in some cases, and this was mine. Like, I don't understand because
No,
again,
that's
it's still
no. That you just we never talked
because the
about
West Coast
this.
is always going to go blue.
I have the same exact theory that like that county whatever,
Yeah. Why not?
like what Spokane's going red in the state.
Yeah, I think Spokane kind of, depending on
Yeah,
the
it
year, kind
definitely
of.
is red.
But everything around Spokane is pretty red. Lincoln
Yeah, you
County
go over to-
has never been blue. It's the only county, I believe, in the state of Washington that's never been blue.
And we're right on the border. I mean,
I mean,
Idaho's-
30 minutes
Idaho's
west.
leading- yeah.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
leaning-
No,
It's a more conservative area
Have
on this
you-
side of the Cascades.
talking about that, like I agree with you. Like there's no, like I actually thought I was gonna give you a bombshell idea, but you already had it.
I mean, and we already have 2 states that do it. We have an
Washington-
example to go by.
What is stopping them from making the switch?
Well,
The biggest
power.
thing.
Power.
Power. They know they're
Power.
not. They
Power.
might-
Do you think the
It's
Democrats
power.
in California
Yeah.
would ever want their 50 or whatever
Yeah,
with
go
electoral
back to
votes that
the-
they have
the map there.
to be split? Of course not. They would never want to
how
see
many?
that.
How many does?
55 in Cali?
Yeah,
yeah.
55.
What?
And that's
You
the
think-
small
want?
states.
Even if they took 40 and 15 went red, you think they'd want
Yeah,
that
that is
compromise? Fuck no.
Yeah. What's New York?
New York, let's see,
29.
Texas is next. It's
Texas.
Oh,
California
they're
and
going
Texas.
for
Florida is
Texas.
at
And Texas
29.
kind of, there's big cities in Texas tend to be blue. Like I've heard Austin is like really
Austin
kind of
and
like
Houston
bluish.
are definitely
Yeah.
blue.
So I don't know,
But
man. It's,
I think this is our time when it comes down to it. Is like we got to make the moves. Like everybody's upset with both parties.
yeah.
I didn't
and-
know DC had 3 electoral votes too. When they make that.
DC,
Yeah.
they don't get to vote for president.
They have I think
they have
something
3 electoral
something.
votes.
Yeah, it used to be.
I remember it being that they
The DC
There was
motto,
something else.
the DC motto is taxation without representation, because of the way that DC is set up. Like
Yeah, they don't
they
have
have to
the-
get they have to like for the city of DC for like their budget to get approved. It's not done at the city level. It has to be done at like the federal level because
Yeah.
it's the
I
capital.
don't think they get to vote.
So that's like why like the school system in DC is so awful. Like they couldn't get things done because they had to go through federal channels to change the school system. It's not like here where we can do it, through the county or through the state.
It's the only place that's like literally just federal like jurisdiction, and they don't.
It's kind of a weird.
They
it's kind of a
don't
weird
get
little
to
area.
vote.
No, they get electoral votes, but they don't have a. I don't think they have a. They don't have a senator. Do they have a congressman? I'm not sure. They have.
They don't have a lot of shit at least.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not a state, so they don't have all like the rights that
Yeah.
states do.
So I thought I had a bombshell for you there.
No, I thought that was a good one, man. No, I would.
That's how.
But that's my opinion, man.
That's
like,
mine too.
Like Jo Jorgensen, she was kind of like, I don't really want to see it to be a winner take all or a popular vote system because then we're just gonna have like whoever New York City and
No.
California
And
decide
California really
that's
want.
what they're gonna
And have you
dictate
seen those
policy
cities
for
lately?
yeah.
Not doing well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it completely ignores, all of the flyover states, which, are not as population dense, of course. But as Americans, they should still have
I think
representation.
the county by county would be.
Yeah.
I like or
A district or whatever
district,
it is. Yeah.
county,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever. But we also have to get rid of gerrymandering.
There's a lot of gerrymandering going on both sides too, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, especially like because I'm from the
We
I'm from
can't
the
do
East Coast.
that.
I'm from the East Coast, man, and some of those states are just totally ate up. If you look at like parts of Virginia and like Maryland, you're just like, I mean,
Is this a
it'll-
puzzle?
Well, yeah.
Do you-
Oh man, there'll
Do
be
you
like
know what gerrymandering
there'll be like
is?
parts like separated by like bodies of water, and it's like you actually have to. There are parts where you have
Real
to
quick,
drive through another
hold on,
district
hold
to
on,
get
hold on.
into the same
Lloyd,
district.
explain to Drew here and everybody else what gerrymandering is.
Okay, so
Gerrymandering is.
so when you vote for your candidates, right, like on the local scale, they look at like your, and I think it differs from state, and I don't know all the details, but at least like
I'll
on
be
a
right
simple
back.
level, they look at how the representation of voter demographics are made up, right?
Okay.
So after an election.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, well, let's just use Spokane for example, and this is all just theory, so none of this is true. Let's say after this election that North Spokane is all blue,
Okay.
and then the Valley is all red. But the way that the lines are drawn for certain city councilmen or whatever, they want to capitalize on getting more of the red votes or the blue votes.
Okay.
So they'll redraw the lines to do that. So if you look at certain
And
states,
this is happening places.
this happens in tons of states, man,
it's
and
very
it's
common.
uh
How is there no law that?
it goes. I don't know, man. It's one of those things I don't know enough about, and
That's crazy.
I know that in certain times that has
Is
become
gerrymandering legal?
well, it has gone to courts, right?
Yeah, Miller versus Johnson, 1995. That racial
back to
gerrymandering.
explain
That's
it a little
racial
bit more.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering is a violation.
I kind of
of
gave him like the most like
rights.
bare bones basic version, but it basically
got
goes.
the- I got the
It's
gist of it.
redrawing district lines to capitalize on
On the
voters
votes.
of your particular party.
Exactly. And for some odd reason, at some point, the government gave themselves that ability to do it.
And both sides do it.
Yeah,
Because
they
you
both
can
do it.
look at it for Republicans and Democrats. Does one side do it more than the other? I think it depends on the state, honestly, and depends on the control.
Okay.
Because I
mean,
know,
it
like
doesn't
in North
even really matter
Carolina,
with our state, I feel.
in North Carolina, which is pretty red,
Yeah.
I know some of their district lines are like so ate up looking
It
to
looks like a
capitalize on
puzzle.
those red votes. And in Maryland, I know it's kind of the reverse for some of those blue votes in blue districts. So it's not. It only comes down to that binary choice that people are seeing in our system, right? It has to be one or the other. And people are willing to ignore their own party doing the same things that the opposite party is doing. This is a prime example of gerrymandering. You'll hear if you're probably a North Carolina resident and you're a Democrat, you'll point fingers about this, Republicans doing this.
Okay.
But then you'll ignore Democrats doing it, in another state or whatever. Like, we're getting to a point where I feel there's so many disenfranchised American voters out there that are just throwing their hands up and they're not even voting. We said 4 years ago that 40% of registered voters didn't even vote for president.
Well, and then we're also literally asking ourselves, is Donald Trump better than some dude? that's about to like have full on dementia. Like, what are we doing? That's the question I have to ask America. Like what are we doing?
I think a lot of
And
people are
it's
asking that
time
question.
to,
and I think
like-
This might be not a solution, but another option, which gives us a
It's
lot
a-
of grow room.
Well,
I'm
think
gonna
about
say it's
think
the
about
better option.
think about how frustrating it is for us in the party, right? Let's just ignore parties altogether for a second and
Okay.
just look at the candidates on paper.
Oh.
You got Biden, who's been in government for I think 47 years total, including his time in
made
Senate and his time as
plenty-
vice president, also presiding over the Senate,
Plenty of racist comments.
right? We've got he said lots of racist stuff.
No, like
We
sure,
we
yeah.
can argue that some of the issues regarding mass incarceration in the U.S. and the whole thing's some of the topics that the Black Lives Matter movement is bringing up, he can be attributed to
I'm
for
gonna-
certain crime bills that he may have passed
Yeah.
in the past, like the '94 crime bill,
I still
along
have
with
that
Kamala,
question
who is
for
the
you.
Attorney General of California, who laughs about incarcerating people for things like marijuana use and possession,
And then,
despite admitting that she herself has used marijuana.
No kidding.
yeah, you didn't know that?
Who has also, she's done things like withheld evidence in certain cases. Like, she is kind of like a great example of a corrupt attorney general, and who is
No.
helping perpetuate the system of mass incarceration and imprisonment of Americans. Okay, so that's the blue ticket. Okay,
Real
but
quick.
let's ignore that. That's just who we got for that side. Then we got Trump,
Okay.
and we know what he's been about for 4 years,
Yeah,
and
we
love
do.
him or hate him. My big argument against him, just straight up, is I don't feel he's doing very much to unite this country, which I think is going to be the ultimate demise of our society if we don't get a grip on it. So I don't think that
That's
he's
a
doing
great
that.
point.
Regardless of, there's certain things that I like that he's done, in regards to his power.
I
But
mean, he's a businessman. He's
but
gonna do
but
what
he's
he
got
does.
lots of these allegations, weird ties to Russia, sexual misconduct allegations, weird business things that are coming up as past tax return stuff.
Okay,
all these things,
real
okay?
quick,
Morally
quick.
going into
Oh,
it,
and
we
then-
knew who he was.
And then we
though.
got
Hold
Joe
on,
Jorgensen,
hold
who
on.
is a PhD in psychology,
Listen to this, please.
Yeah.
senior lecturer at Clemson University, a very prestigious school, has been a member of the party since the 90s, very articulate, well-spoken, and a lot of people say that libertarians want to promise all these things with no plan. She's got great plans, if you really ask me, on how to bring the troops home and how to end the war on drugs and end mass incarceration and stuff. And she gets no media spotlight whatsoever.
But the
None.
biggest thing, she's got no. Who's
It's
pulling
not going
her
to make anybody
strings?
money.
Yeah,
Nobody is.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the whole thing.
That's the
Nobody's
biggest
pulling
thing.
the strings.
You're getting Joe Jorgensen when you vote Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
But when you're voting other candidates, I mean, who are you really getting?
Bring
You're
up the
getting-
money aspect again. We were talking about how much money has been raised for this campaign, and we were talking about what was it?
990 million for Biden and 1.33 billion
Billion
for Trump.
dollars, man.
A
That's
billion.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a ton of money, man.
And who's
And-
that coming from? That's
And
not,
think about it. It's
No,
It's-
like I bet you it's not the other billionaires.
it's a ton of money, man. And,
Yeah.
I've
coming
been
from companies. It's coming
I
from.
watch as my homie Dre likes to call him Timmy Lakes, Tim Pool, and most of the donations come from average Americans.
some of it does, yeah. Certainly.
And Biden is basically all on that Wall Street money.
But those big.
And do you want
Yeah, that too.
Wall Street
Yeah.
running your country?
It was like 4 years ago with Hillary. If you looked at her financial benefactors, things like Goldman Sachs and other big banks, and it's like we were blaming.
Isn't that what
we were
we're
blaming
fighting
Wall
about?
Street. We're blaming the same group of individuals blaming Wall Street for the financial crisis is now going to vote for a candidate that is backed by those same banks. How absurd is
this?
this?
Is bullshit.
Right? Or even this year, we are arguing that the justice system is maybe racist to a certain degree. We know,
Oh, no,
regardless
it
of how you
totally
feel about
is.
it. But either way, we have mass incarceration of Americans in this country, right? What are we going to do about that? Well, we're going to vote in a guy who brought in a law that helped facilitate that, backed by an attorney general who helped facilitate that. Like, what is this?
Yeah, it seems kind of counterproductive.
What's the definition of insanity?
Dude, there was literally an article that Joe Biden.
Oh my god, that's great.
that he said, I don't want my kids to go to an integrated school.
I saw that. Yeah, years ago. Yeah.
He's
He's talking about how inner city schools were very.
I don't want
they're not.
my
They're not.
kids to
They
go
don't
to
have
the
the
school
budget,
with
so they're not as good.
animals.
Yeah.
He
He
literally
said animals.
he literally
kidding.
called them
Yeah.
animals.
He said some very questionable.
Do you think he's actually changed his mind, or he just follows along with what people are really?
No.
I think right
Pushing
now
forward,
his
so-
mind changes all the time.
Go straight up, yeah.
Actually, you know what? I mean, like, it's easy to pick on the man because he clearly probably has dementia, and I hate doing.
Clearly, probably.
Well, I hate
That's
doing
an
it
oxymoron,
because my
right?
dad passed away and he had dementia before he passed, and there are times straight up when I see him talking and I'm like, that's something my dad did, man. Straight up, some type of tick or something he says or mannerism, and I think it's disgusting what the Democrats are doing, basically playing like Weekend at Bernie's with him, because again we talked about that if he wins.
Oh shit!
If
no,
he wins,
no. I gotta, dude. I've never thought about that. That's so good. I'm so stealing that real quick.
you should, because it's true.
Weekend at Bernie's
Yeah,
with Joe
they're just
Biden.
propping him up as a puppet candidate. Who, I mean, even if you ask
yeah.
Democrats during the primaries, there were so many people that didn't want Joe Biden. Bernie's gotten the shaft from the DNC for twice now.
Can we give
you
it
know?
up to not Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard, for fucking ruining Kamala, and then we all forgot somehow that awesome.
I do like seeing those videos pop up on my Instagram from time to time. And you know what? I'm not a Democrat, and I don't like their policy at all. But Tulsi is one of the few.
If you would have
the
put
few,
Tulsi up there,
politicians
I could have
did
voted
like.
for Tulsi.
Yeah.
What happened?
I'm
She basically called Kamala out for, while her tenure as Attorney General in California, incarcerating thousands of people for drug use while basically laughing for cannabis usage. Basically, there was like some type of labor thing where
Let's not
they could
forget about the death row thing.
Yeah, something about withholding evidence, I believe.
Yeah,
and,
she
some straight up-
withheld evidence on a case because she didn't want her case overturned.
So there's a great podcast. Maybe you've heard of it.
On death row.
Have you heard of the Innocence Project?
No.
It's a team of lawyers who go after cases regarding death row, people who've been convicted and they're on death row, and they feel like that they've been wrongfully accused, wrongfully incarcerated for the crime. So they fight against it, and a lot of times they win because there's evidence has been withheld, something else, because they'll even say, and as lawyers they say, the justice system is not designed to bring justice anymore. It's designed for somebody to win, right? Someone has to win. That's the incentive. The incentive is not to make sure that this American citizen is given a fair trial. It's that both sides are a sport. They're on different teams, and they're fighting to win. And they did a podcast with Joe Rogan. It's a pretty good one. But they bring up Kamala's tenure as Attorney General during that time, the things that she did. Despite all these things, they say that they will vote for Biden and Kamala. They literally have a job where they fight, the justice system and lawyers like Kamala who have created this corruption that incarcerates Americans, but simultaneously will vote for that same person. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right?
Not the tech. Actually, pull it up. That's I'm pretty sure that's the saying, but
it's just a saying.
What is?
It's just a saying, man.
No,
but you know what I mean.
I believe. I'm a firm believer in that saying, but I also want to know what the definition is.
Extreme foolishness or irrationality, or the state of being seriously mentally ill or
Nope.
madness.
No,
It still
no,
works.
different words. No.
Different
You
words.
said that in different words. Yeah.
And isn't what we have now with the two-party system
It's
the same
exactly
thing?
what's going on.
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
I was gonna. So if
What's your
a
question?
libertarian was elected into office, how do they really go about to change anything when they don't have any libertarian in the Senate or to
Ooh.
pass in the Congress or
Because the libertarian president.
they'd just be fighting more. I feel. I mean, you get their side out there, but
That's
until
a
you
great
build
point.
up the concrete,
So two things I will argue. I think the beauty about the libertarian philosophy, it doesn't mean that you're your own separate party that's just going to be against red and
Either
blue
side.
because they're red and blue.
Okay.
There are lots of things that I will agree with on Republicans in regards to, say, Second Amendment rights, reducing the scope of government.
Or liberal.
Okay.
There are things I agree with Democrats on, being socially conscious, making sure that there are protections for certain races and minorities if they're
Of
needed,
course.
whatever, right?
You're
Not
bothering
giving
other
a shit
people.
if someone's gay or trans or whatever, if they're not hurting somebody, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a libertarian's just going to vote against red and blue because they're red and blue, because
But
there's
it's
some
not the
overlap.
Libertarians voting against you. It's the red and blue voting against you. When you're trying to pass these bills, and what if they fight those bills and those
All right.
I think-
changes?
I got this. Let me have this one. All right. I think what if Joe Jurgensen somehow won in 2020, which I firmly don't think will happen, unfortunately. I'd prefer it that way. But it would at least put some light on us.
You think that would further the libertarian stance and other?
And then
Other
Congress
degrees of
people,
Congress
because you
instead of-
had a great point, because we do need to get laws passed through Congress and the House.
So
Because all the president does is actually control the military. Like, that's really what he's supposed to be doing, is keeping our country safe.
he is the commander-in-chief.
Well, no, I call him the troll-in-chief at this point.
Sure.
Because that is the biggest troll in America right now.
So
But that's how I would put that, is like, it would at least put a light on us so that we could get in Congress, because that is probably the most important thing that we should be focusing on.
yeah.
As a
I
party.
think like I'm gonna say the blanket statement of I hate politicians, right? Like most people will.
Yeah.
But I also understand that there's thousands of politicians all across the spectrum that are just regular Americans that are just trying to make their communities, their county, their state, whatever, better, right? I would argue too that if at that local level, without quite that party infighting, if they're just trying to do things like locally, that they'd be willing to work with whoever they're willing to work with, regardless
Okay.
of party. On
That's
the
kinda
flip
the
side
answer
of
I was
that,
looking for.
let's say if we have like a bigger libertarian presence and it ends up roadblocking things happening in Congress, I would argue that we're okay with that because we hate government anyways, and that if that's happening, then we're all winning anyways, right? Because what does government exist to do, really? To create laws, right? That's all they do is create laws, right? So, like, if we can
Pretty
stop
much
them
just
from
stop
making
them.
more laws, right? Even if
You
it's
really are
at the
doing your
expense,
purpose
that's
then.
kind of like my joke answer, of
That's
course.
pretty good.
No.
But
No,
I don't know, man.
It's
I-
a joke answer, but it's true.
It is pretty.
Sure. There are countries in Europe, for example, that have multiple parties, and some of the arguments are like, well, they have so many parties that they don't get anything done. Well, I mean, we're kind of seeing that anyways, even with the two-party system. Like, I keep saying, like, well, we have these what-if questions about...
ourselves and
We have these what-if questions about what if the Libertarian Party gets bigger? What if we get more major... What if... I mean, we can sit here and try to guess what's going to happen. But all we know is, like, we got the system that we know we have in place now that sucks.
Okay.
And maybe we can try something different. And maybe it will suck. Maybe the Libertarian Party becomes as crappy as the other two parties one day. And then I'm just
Right.
like, oh, shit. But at least we're trying right now. You know what I mean?
Well, you also know that they've never been called just like Democrats and Republicans. Like, there was the Jeffersonians and...
Are you talking about going back through history and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had like the Whig Party, which was a major party for a long time.
Shit
I think the
changes.
Democrats have been for... Yeah, the Republicans
Really
were a
has
third
changed.
party. They were a third party that became a major party, during the Lincoln Civil War era.
I mean, these
So
are over
what
the
do-
course of decades, though.
Yeah.
Well, shit
There's a-
That's why I was
changes.
saying
Like, this
2032.
is...
I'm thinking you guys have a bigger or a better chance a while down the road if you really do get that 5% now. But
Yeah.
I don't think in the near future. I really don't see the Libertarian Party rising
Not after this election.
unless it's in the local government. Which, if it's at that level, then it's a beautiful thing because it's just
That-
building up the entire structure of it.
Yeah.
No, that's what we.
And that's probably
that-
what you guys
It's
are.
brand
really-
recognition, man.
Oh,
like, is
that's-
what
And
it
that's
is.
that's your
you know.
main goal.
I want to bring up real quick. I want to give a shout out to Anthony Welty. He was a Libertarian candidate in this state. He ran for the insurance commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Washington's unique, and then I think it's only like one of 10 states or something where you have an electable insurance commissioner. It's usually appointed by the governor. And
Bureaucracy.
the current insurance commissioner we have, I think it's Mike Creedler is his name, and he's a Democrat. And he's been in office, I think, for at least 5 terms, like 20 years. It's a 4-year.
Where people
It's a
just
4
go
year,
check
right?
deed, check deed.
What-
That's what
so-
we got to get out of it in this country too.
I want to bring
Go
up
on.
a real world example here, talking about this race, because it's important, and a lot of Washingtonians don't realize this, right? So, he's been the insurance commissioner for decades now. We have seen insurance rates in this state raise year after year after year, despite Olympia saying, no, it's going to be fine, we're going to stabilize it. The insurance commissioner's job is basically kind of act as like the intermediary between insurance companies and doing business in the state. You know this dude's getting a kickback from freaking insurance companies, right?
Oh, it's
Right,
probably
got it.
in his campaign.
Okay, so we had Anthony Welty, the Libertarian candidate, who for 3 years traveled all across Washington, living out of basically his truck and trailer, campaigning on like the localist levels. He had worked in insurance for many years, so he kind of understood the nuances of the insurance system. Reached out all over the state. The Republican who's on the ballot now, his name, I can't pronounce his whole name, but his last name is Patel. He's an Indian guy. If you look at his platform, even read what he wrote into the guide, you'll be like, this guy is on another level. He's autistic, and I'm not saying that as to make fun
I
of
read
him.
his stuff.
I'm not
It's
saying that-
actually- Yeah, he's
I'm not saying that to make fun of
very
him. He's
knowledgeable, I would say.
Sure, I'm not saying that he's not a smart guy, but he basically says that if he wins this position, that he's an autistic savant that's going
And
to
he
channel the
appoints other
powers
people.
of Reagan and Thomas Jefferson to run this position. I mean, it's just all over the place. Anyone who's reading this is going to be like, and he's a Republican. He beat Welty. Welty campaigned on 2 things alone that should have won him that position: term limits for that position, and he said that he would cut the salary for the position in half. It's like $175,000 a year. He would have cut it in half. On those 2 platforms alone, he should have won it,
yeah.
right?
No kidding.
As far as getting
Tell us how you
these
really
career
feel.
politicians out of here. You know, at this level, at the state level.
The
And
only
he
thing-
busted his ass for 3 years across the state, and he didn't win. And Patel beat him out.
You know
Just
what I
because of and Mike Creedler, he got 60% of the primary vote. They had a debate, and Creedler didn't even show up. They had a debate that was put on by the state of Washington, and he didn't even show up, and he still got 60% of the vote just because he's got a
That's just
fucking
sad.
D next to his name,
Yeah.
man.
The weirdest thing I thought
And we
about
asked,
that-
oh well, insurance. And I just heard from my employer because we just got to the end of our fiscal year. Guess what? Our insurance rates are going to go up again.
What do you know?
Shocker. Shocker. Welty's idea was that insurance shouldn't even be coupled to businesses, that you should buy it like a car insurance. You should be able to buy it over state lines, you know?
Yeah, you should.
Your life insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your renter's insurance.
Well,
All these things
okay,
are just...
real quick. All right. Rant.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel.
I just bring up that example about Welty
No,
busting
it's
his ass.
good.
But people would still
But-
just vote for a party.
Yeah.
You know?
Should insurance even be required?
That might be an argument for another day, right? Depending on
Yeah,
how you
no
feel
kidding.
about it. Like,
That is a
Like-
long conversation. That's
Well,
a big
no.
one.
I don't
like,
think that the government should be
you-
quite involved in it like how it
you-
is.
Should you have to have car insurance to drive a car?
Most definitely. Just because of the liability of somebody else's vehicle and somebody else's, you know. I think you should.
It sounds
least
like
to
you want
cover-
safety over freedom.
Right? It gets into that weird kind of that double-edged sword area again. Yeah.
Sounds like you want safety over freedom.
How is it? I want fairness, I guess, over.
Okay,
Safety.
he
I
has
think
to
fairness
pay
over
you
safety.
after. I'm not saying he doesn't have to pay you.
So maybe the argument can be made in this specific case of that, because most states require you to have car insurance.
Yes.
Right? There
Yep.
are obviously people out there that don't have insurance and
And
still
they're
drive
yeah.
and still get in accidents. So we who do have car insurance have to have some type of uninsured motor vehicle coverage anyways. Right?
Okay.
Well, what if the state was just like, I don't know. If they just said, and I'm not an
It's not
insurance
my
guy,
concern.
but what if they just said like, hey, it's not a requirement, but maybe if there's some type of fine if you get into an accident and it's your fault and you don't have insurance. I don't know, man. Again, this is one of those
Well, no.
things
Be
that's kind
something
of.
like that, because
Like,
otherwise,
no, you
I'm
all-
a hit and run.
Sure.
I'm a hit and run no matter what I fucking do.
But we can argue that's already
But
that's
you
that's
can
happening
still
anyways
do
too.
that.
That's happening anyways too now, right?
that's true. Okay.
Regardless, and so you still have to get some type of uninsured motorist. Otherwise, you're screwed because they're like, well, sorry,
There is
we
no
don't.
way
There's
about
no
it.
other
There's no
party.
way- Yeah.
It's a
So
shit
why
sandwich.
you-
It is
So
a
you gotta
shit
take a bite.
sandwich, yeah.
You gotta
So
take a
you're
bite.
gonna require me to pay $300 to travel every month? That's fucked up.
That is pretty fucked up.
You know?
If I'm a good driver,
Well, there's different. I mean, if you have a $300 bill, you're obviously not a great driver.
no. Well, I
That's a
don't.
lot of tickets.
Okay,
That's a lot of-
$100.
It depends on how old you are and what type of car you drive.
Yeah, I'm
you
21
know-
and I'm still sitting at
What's your
200.
insurance every month?
200,
200. Okay.
which is going down when I'm 25, supposedly.
Because that's
Well,
the
yeah,
that's
even
the
fucked
age
up
of an
now,
adult.
too.
Depending on
Age
what.
for me. That's when I grow up, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
I can
even
work a
fucked
full-time
up.
job, but
See, you're seeing what I'm saying.
You can go to
Drew.
war,
I can go to war, but I can't.
rent a car.
You
Can't rent a
see
car.
what I'm saying here? Like,
No, I really do, yeah.
like, obviously, if you get in an accident, you got to take care of your fucking bills.
Yeah.
But like, you shouldn't be required to have that.
So then it kind of
That's
becomes.
just an industry that was made up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one, right? Because like there are things that we do like every day in American society, like drive a car,
Yeah,
right?
but that's a
And as
not
a free society,
privilege.
because
It's
you really
a right to travel.
So, like, right, the extreme libertarian position would be like, well, you shouldn't even need a license, or even, I don't give a shit if a 12-year-old drives, as long as they're being safe about it. Well,
I was a pretty
I
smart
don't know.
12-year-old.
That's a tough one that could probably really devolve into a really long
just
conversation
keep
regarding
fighting
insurance.
other-
It's something
Yeah.
maybe you should get Anthony Welty on your podcast for, because he's the insurance guy. I'm not. I'm not going to pretend I am.
I'm definitely
But
gonna
it is
hit
it
him
is an
up.
interesting topic because when you advocate for freedom, again, I always say freedom is a double-edged sword, right? Freedom, safety. You
Yep.
can't always have both. So how can we meet that compromise? And in the case of like a motor vehicle, I guess that compromise is insurance, right?
It really
I don't
is.
know.
I feel. I mean,
You know?
you can't just take away insurance because there's too many people who can't be
Sure.
held liable.
Well, no, but you made the
for their
point. People
actions.
already run anyways.
But
so
should-
what's insurance even doing to like
Well,
stop
that's such a
that
low
person
percentage of people. There's
from? No, dude, people run all the
Yeah.
time.
really.
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation I can say.
No, like.
And the
Well,
insurance
around the
companies are all
situation, even with
scumbags at
people
the
who
end of the
don't have
day,
insurance.
too.
Yeah, they're
You know,
just
they're
they're,
not
they're,
really trying to-
not even trying to help you out. They're trying to like make sure you can't get your claim half the time.
Yeah.
So I just know that I don't like
Like what we doing?
I don't know.
That's all
I
I'm
don't like
asking.
I don't like the insurance companies having power, and I don't like them dictating, the course of Americans living their lives, especially if it's for
I'm
like,
not saying
everything like for
Yeah.
example, like I didn't like Affordable Care Act because like how are you going to find someone for not being able to afford health insurance? That's insanity to me. In the case of like car insurance, you can make the argument that we need to drive to go to work.
Yeah.
Most Americans need to have an automobile for their day-to-day functions to survive.
But now you got it.
So you got-
bought the car.
but then you gotta pay-
And now every month
the
you have
state
to
is
pay
saying
to
you gotta
have
pay
the car.
a company insurance. But at least in the case of like a motor vehicle, you have options, right? You don't have to just go with Geico or Progressive or
That's
US
true.
or whatever.
You can grab the
do
general.
different claims. And
Sure.
Different,
In the
But
case of
still,
health
It
insurance, you
still
have.
shouldn't be mandatory.
But in the case of health insurance, what do we have? It's either through your employer, and if you don't like what they got to offer, well, you can try to go to the state. But I can tell you, at least in my experience, that once you make X amount of dollars, there is no state coverage for you. Because that's what happened to me. When I started my own business a few years ago, my income went because I was starting out my own thing. And I had to get on the state insurance, which was like $350 a month for like the crappiest health care that they offered. But that's what I could, that's
That
what
was
I had
it.
to go with.
You're totally correct.
And then when my wife got pregnant, when we were going to have our baby, I was like, okay, I got to get like an actual decent health insurance plan. I got a different job in conjunction with working my business and changing it from full-time to part-time. And the state kicked me off my insurance because I made too much money.
yeah, that's right. I don't. It's
And then I have to go through my employer. And even if I don't like the plans they offer, I don't really have a choice. Now, and here's the big problem with the U.S., right? The only freedom that you really truly have is when you have economic freedom. When you're
Okay.
so fucking rich, you can do whatever you want. Like
become
Epstein
the
or something,
president?
right? You can just do whatever the hell you want.
There's
People
all
turn a blind eye.
capitalistic system.
People who are billionaires, they don't have to play this game. They don't need insurance because they got so much money. If
They can
they
throw
cause
in
an
the faces at
accident
others,
or
yeah.
something happens to them or they get cancer, they might be able to just pay out of pocket for that shit. For the majority of us Americans, it's not the case.
Not at
So we're kind of at the balls with the insurance companies.
Okay, I'll say this. I'm not the richest person in the world, but I'll say
What are you talking about, dude? Your apartment is like, dude, are you kidding me?
Millionaires.
I mean,
I'll say
you're
this.
really,
I'll
you're really
say-
being
I would've
humble,
never
man. You're
guessed.
really being humble right now.
I'll say this about this that argument is it sounds like jealousy to me when people say that shit.
In regards to like what in the rich being rich or
Yeah, like
How can
yeah,
you say that when
like okay, cool. They made their money. I don't know why you're like upset that they're rich.
Well, sure, it's easy
it's
to
how
be
they
jealous.
got rich, I guess.
It's easy to be jealous, but like when in the case of like rich people getting rich by manipulating the system
Yeah.
because they are so rich.
That's when
Especially
it
when
becomes
Because
they
the
that's
started
problem.
the
out,
problem
yeah.
is that
That's
the
where the
ultra
problem
wealthy
is, for sure.
can hire, like let's say Trump in the case of tax returns and blah blah blah. Whether you think that's a big deal or not.
No, it's
Trump
a
is
big
able
deal,
to-
but he straight up said like I did loopholes. I think.
Well,
I'm pretty sure he just
he
straight
can afford a
said,
tax attorney like that. Can
Yeah.
any of us afford a tax attorney to find loopholes for our, whatever, how much? I don't think anyone in this room makes six figures. I don't.
I mean, shoot, that
You
feeds
know,
back into the
what am I-
judicial system
System too, with the hiring your own lawyers and all that freaking pizzazz.
And that's the thing. It's the system has become pay to play.
yeah, it is really pay
know.
to play.
Well,
Anywhere you go.
We got to get the money out of the whole system.
Yeah, and so
And
I don't.
I think that's what the Libertarian Party really like. I don't want to talk for the whole party, but like we do want that.
Sure.
But the sad thing is the money will always come back into play. Like, it's never just gonna...
Cool.
It's never just gonna disappear.
It's the root of all evil,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's gonna come back and play, and
Yeah.
it's whether or not the people in the Libertarian Party then later on are willing to.
Well, I think
Take a
that's
bribe.
what. Okay, I'm gonna speak from my position, and I'll let Lloyd speak from his as a libertarian because no libertarian's the same. We're not all like right leaning. There's left leaning.
We're not all anarchists, right?
like there's
It's
different
pretty wide group.
different.
Sure, and that's what makes it difficult because there's a lot of infighting because we are so different.
diverse.
You know?
And so opinionated and liberty based, like
Sure.
fuck you.
But all off the same boundaries, I would say.
At the end of the day, we all believe in the
the
core philosophy of like
Constitution and,
just live your life. Like,
yeah,
what
exactly.
is the American dream? Pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. If you can do those things without hurting somebody physically or financially,
Who's to say you shouldn't?
why not? Isn't
Yeah.
that the basis of being in a free country?
Yeah.
No truth, yeah.
And I just think it's really simple of what you just put, so I don't even have to explain mine.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like to say that like the libertarian philosophy kind of goes back to the intention of what we felt the founders really wanted. Was to have a government without a whole lot of mechanisms and controls over our lives.
But if somebody came, we could take care of our shit.
So I'm glad.
That's
right?
what I.
So
that's how I feel.
do you know what the
at least.
libertarian mascot is?
No.
It's a porcupine.
Oh fuck yeah!
And you know why that is? Instead of the GOP has the donkey or the elephant, and the Democrats have the donkey. We have my wife says I said this funny porcupine.
Porcupine.
Because it's like the porcupine leaves it is just kind of mind his own business.
Yeah, until
But if you
someone
mess
comes
with him,
up, yeah.
he's got his quills, right? Like we are all about the ownership of self, which includes self-defense. If somebody tries to hurt you, you have a right to defend yourself from that. If someone tries to hurt you financially, you should be able to defend yourself from that too, because that's different than somebody kicking in your door or whatever.
Yeah.
Again,
It's
if
still
it doesn't hurt
harming
you
you and
physically
affecting
and it
you.
doesn't hurt you financially,
No,
it's
just
the whole
your
idea
life.
of no victim, no crime. And real quick, because I don't want this to digress to something else, but talking about some of the things regarding the police system and these people getting killed for very minor offenses, like, a counterfeit $20 bill, I guess, in George Floyd's case, or was it Eric Garner that had was selling Lucy's or something, one cigarettes? Did it really have to get to that point? Like,
No.
is it really a big deal if somebody sells one cigarette? I mean, yeah, I guess it's illegal, but
You're
did it
right.
have to escalate to that point?
We just don't.
George Floyd carrying around counterfeit, 20.
I-
Did it really have to escalate to that point?
I'll say this about these scenarios, like,
How would yours? Sorry. I just had a really.
I don't think that we need to be taking people to jail for every fucking crime. We know where you live. We know who you are. There is absolutely no reason for you to have to go to jail. And jail is so scary that people will do whatever it takes not to go. So that is what we really need to think about in this country is the prison industrial complex that we have in this country, because
What are your guys' views on
I've been
that?
to jail personally
Okay.
multiple times, and yeah, you bet your life I ain't going back.
Sure.
Like, I'm running.
Nobody says I want to go.
No.
Generally, they don't.
No,
You know
I've
what I
been,
mean?
and I'm not going again.
Yeah.
And that's my mind. Like, I see the cops, I'm running.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going back.
Right.
It was the worst scenario you could ever put a human being in.
If you don't mind me asking, what did you go to jail for?
A DUI and marijuana possession.
Okay, I was gonna ask if it was like a drug-related type of charge.
No, marijuana. No, there's just no reason to take someone to jail over that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I think libertarians get stereotyped into, well, you guys just want drugs to be legal and just to have, create too much crazy
Well,
freedom
yeah, I
and
do,
stuff.
because there's no reason to take someone to jail.
Well, but that idea is kind of scary to, like, say your average American who isn't really into politics and hasn't really thought about our platform in that regard, right? Because think about it, when you say that to someone who's just a normal person, they're like, well, I don't want teenagers doing crack in my neighborhood and stuff like that.
Nobody.
I don't
does.
like the stereotype that all we do is care about our drugs. But I will argue it's super important for us to end the war on drugs because it incarcerates so many Americans. We can't claim to be the land of the free while we simultaneously lock up a huge percent of our population. In certain cases, we lock up more of our population than these communist countries that we're always saying, you're going to get sent to the gulag if you're in Russia or Cuba or all, whatever. But here we are in the land of the free with huge prison populations. And regardless of how you feel about it, the prison prisons are supposed to rehabilitate, but they don't in our country. It's punishment. And it becomes a revolving door system. So when people say, all you want to do is legalize drugs, I'm like, well, I want to legalize drugs not because, I want everybody to have a good time. I want to decriminalize drugs so that we can end the mass incarceration of Americans. Because drug abuse is not a criminal problem. It's a mental health issue. Alcoholism is not a criminal problem. We don't take an alcoholic and lock them up and throw them in a cell for days or weeks and expect them to get clean. But we do that to people who are hooked on heroin. It's a mental health issue. Period. And so when I hear that stereotype about drugs, I'm like, I don't want people to think libertarians just are like, oh, we're just a bunch of fucking potheads and druggies and blah, blah, blah. And,
Yeah, we like
okay,
pot,
sure,
but-
some of us are, whatever, I don't care. If you want to go home, after a long day, a week, whatever, and do some nose candy and it's just on you, whatever, man. There's already people doing it. And there's people who do that in the highest levels of our society. You can't tell me that there aren't white-collar workers out there that aren't doing freaking blow on the weekends. You can't tell me that shit doesn't exist on Wall Street, right?
Lloyd.
But they're not being prosecuted for it because...
Have the money.
Exactly.
But Lloyd, my neighbor's doing meth, and he might rob me.
You're right, and I don't want my neighbor doing meth. In a case like that, I would argue him cooking meth next to me is a hazard. It
Oh
violates
no, the cooking part.
He's
totally.
violating it, right? He's
Like
violating
that-
what we call the non-aggressive principle. The whole
Yeah.
don't start no shit, won't be no shit type of thing, right? He's creating a dangerous situation. Now, I would argue, okay, let's say,
What if he's just smoking?
well, if he's smoking and doing his own thing, and
No
he's
harm
not,
in- Yeah, you don't even see it being done.
if he's not outside and he's trying to like give it to my kids or whatever,
Lord.
like.
Oh no, that's harm.
So let's talk, because again, the whole legalization of drugs. Well, if we legalize meth, are we going to have people cooking it in freaking trailers and shit like that?
Just like they are
Maybe,
now?
maybe, but probably not to the extent that we have now. Like in cannabis, do we still have people who are growing their own weed? Yes. Is it to the levels that they used to be?
They don't have to.
Why would you? You just go to the store and get the
what
shit.
if we got some like, waltz
and so,
going on, and like they just go out to the desert?
yeah,
yeah.
Walter White in it.
Yeah. Like,
Well, what is his incentive then? To break the law to do this, to make money fighting against stores that are selling it legitimately. You know what I mean? Like, are more people in the state of Washington likely to go to the store to buy weed, or are they going to go and try to find some dude who's got an underground grow operation and move large amounts that way? For the average cannabis user.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
you saw the look in my
And,
eyes.
and when you go to a pot store, are you worried about that cannabis being laced with PCP or some other crazy substance? No, because they regulate it to a certain degree,
Well,
right?
have you
At least you have a
actu-
label that shows you the breakdown of it. We can do that with these other hard drugs too. So it kind of takes out that. Well, what if all these people are ODing on stuff? Well, if we're giving
they
them
were already
drugs that are.
ODing.
Portugal decriminalized hard drugs years ago. They don't have these issues that people fear about streets getting filled with drugs and needles and kids getting hooked on drugs. They got people who work in Portugal, regular jobs, and still use heroin.
Really?
Yeah.
It's called being a functioning heroin addict.
Well, what do they give heroin addicts, right? They give them, what is that drug?
Suboxone.
There's a couple different ones, but there's one, which is basically like a low
Suboxone.
dosage.
It's
Because,
Suboxone.
yeah. Well, what's the difference in that case in the U.S.? If we're giving a recovering heroin addict like a little tiny bit of kind of heroin, like in his case, it might be more than that, but it's still been deemed by the government of Portugal to be safe for human consumption and safe enough that he can use and still be a functioning member of their society.
That's how it should be deemed, huh?
I know guys. I'm a welder now, right? I know guys who smoke weed and weld. These guys build fucking machines and stuff, you know. I know a dude who builds like these cranes, overhead cranes. They're supposed to carry, tons of material.
Bet
If
you
he
takes
fucks
his
up
time.
his job, he can kill someone.
Bet you he's
But
taking
guess
his
what?
time.
He still does it because for him, in his particular case, it kind of gets him in the zone where he can really dial in on what he needs to do. Because it is kind of like an attention to detail job. It works different for different people.
Definitely.
So, all right. I think that was some good points on that, and we agree on that drug thing. I have, Drew, one last question here for Lloyd before we have episode 2.
I would love to
Coming
do.
up.
I was gonna say. I know there's lots of stuff that we didn't talk about that we were kind of planning to, but
But
let's do it again
No,
soon,
no,
yeah.
like I really like getting the voice of the Libertarian Party
Yeah.
out there.
and I'm your rep, brother, and I'm right
it-
down the street. So if you want to
it's
talk about
super
libertarianism,
important, and we got a liberty curious individual over here right now.
well,
Get me started, that's for sure.
hey, well, I do want to thank you guys for having me, man, and doing this. Even the scope of you doing this is helping to reach out to certain people. Because I keep saying,
we got.
I know you're not Joe Rogan, right? You're not gonna get millions
I'm
of people on board.
trying.
But yeah, absolutely. It starts with us, right?
Yeah.
We can get, even if we get
The
one or
everyday
two
people.
voters, one or two people, the Google, we've done our job, right?
Yeah.
Because it's planting that seed of liberty into people.
Yes, sir.
And your generation, the younger generations, are willing to do that due diligence to get on Google and be like, what is libertarianism? What is the party platform? What does Joe Jorgensen
It's
stand
the
for?
number one question that I am always asked when, I'm talking politics and shit. There's oh, what is libertarianism? And like I said earlier, my basic answer is don't bother me, I won't bother you. It's pretty simple that way.
There's a couple,
There's more layers, but just to the lamest, it's just it's just this right here. Like,
Absolutely, man.
It's
yeah.
pretty simple.
That's what we want to get back to. Some of these core philosophies outlined by these brilliant, though maybe morally suspect men in certain cases, right?
I mean,
But still, for the time, they created this really cool living document, and it's now it's
Still
our turn to
holds
take the
strong.
torch,
Yeah.
right? Because I think the big problem with politics in the country is that people feel like we can't do anything, we can't change anything because the parties that,
We're just such a
the
small
powers that
part
be,
of
the
it.
parties that be, are just going to dictate things.
so it's
But
time to
us
change
doing
it.
this now is kind of just that first. It's that
5%.
small spark.
Yep,
It's
that's-
the catalyst to start things
That's a
here,
step.
right? And that's why I'm getting involved because, like, again, I want to do what I can to introduce this party to more people, to
Same.
realize, like, hey, we are the party of the average American.
Exactly.
I'm not rich. I'm not getting bankrolled by banks and all this shit. I'm just a regular dude with a
That just
family
wants you to be you.
that is just willing to kind of I would say that I am passionate about politics, and I think that I have certain skills that I can use to bring more people in, at least to like talk about it and doing events like shooting or whatever,
Yeah.
to bring people into it and be like, hey, you know, there is another party out there, and we are just like you. We're fed up with this idiocracy, you know, scenario that's happening in front of our eyes. You know, I keep saying, I'm like,
I love that movie.
Idiocracy in 1984 were supposed to be books of fiction or works of fiction. They're not supposed to be instruction manuals. But
Yeah.
that's what's
Yet they're
happening,
leading
right?
us towards it.
Right?
Yeah, they made us read that in high school just to
Yeah.
really show us
Yeah.
what it's.
I like to read it every couple of years just to kind of like see like how much things have gotten a little closer.
Little
Animal Farm's a good one too, and
Animal
that's one of
Farm.
Joe Jorgensen's favorite books as well.
Oh.
And I think they're making a Netflix series about it, so that should make it even more easy to digest for
Yeah.
the masses out there.
So, bringing up Joe again, Joe Jurgensen, she's made the comment about she supports Black Lives Matter.
Okay?
Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
And I don't want to get caught up on that because she also just recently made another comment that we have to be anti-racist.
Well, she said that when she took the presidential nomination from during the Libertarian convention. So that saying like we don't have
The
to be
tweet.
racist, we have to be anti-racist. That's nothing. That's something she has said before.
Okay.
And yeah,
my big point here in this, like I said, it's not like a gotcha moment or anything.
Sure.
But I personally believe being anti-racist is actually being racist because you're still judging people on their skin tone.
This guy makes a point like that. He was saying, how exactly is that a libertarian
Well,
viewpoint?
read.
If you're an apolitical and you leave other people alone, that should be enough as a citizen.
but we as individuals can agree, regardless of you know politics, that people shouldn't be treated differently because of the color of their skin, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty universal,
I just
right?
don't think she understood what she was saying.
About the anti-racist thing.
Do you want me to read
Yeah.
it?
I mean, I guess
No, read it real quick. Yeah, read
Okay,
it
the
for
first
us.
one is, it is not enough to be passively not racist. We must be actively anti-racist. And then the next one is, Black Lives Matter means standing in solidarity with mourning black community as we fight together to end qualified immunity, police brutality, sentencing disparties, and the war on drugs, not support of any organization by that name.
So that points out like her Black Lives Matter point. Like she made that clear. So I don't got any quorum there. But I don't think she realizes the fact that you're actively pointing out people's race being anti-racist is racist. That's a racist
But then
thought
it's
pattern.
so
Like,
I will
you're,
say
you're looking at people.
so I will say like I've heard this.
Oh, you're a baby. You can't do anything for yourself. I gotta do everything for you.
I will say like I've heard like one of the terms, and I think I even heard like Denzel Washington say this like in regards to racism is that well if we keep talking about it, it'll never go away.
Exactly.
I will counter argue that a little bit because
But we can't forget about history.
I think that we've been turning a blind eye to it, and it hasn't fixed the problem, right? So I feel like we can argue semantics a little bit, and I do want to talk about Black Lives Matter for a little bit. I don't know how much more time we got to do this, man.
I gotta go pee one more time.
Yeah,
are you about there?
I mean, I can talk more, but if you want to take a break and pick back up, I can do that.
No,
man.
no, I need you to. I want the answer to the end of this one.
I would love to talk about it.
No. I need let's finish this answer, and we'll get more into it. But I feel like that comment is not libertarian.
Okay.
And it is actually racist to point out that you need to take care of other races for themselves. That's what that says to me.
Okay.
You told me what I need to do.
Sure.
So No, I need the answer.
Oh, you want it now? I thought we were taking a break.
No. I said
I thought we were
need
going to take
the
a
answer
Okay,
now.
so I will so this is my interpretation, right? I'm not Joe Jorgensen. I'm trying to
you're not going to
speak
for her.
Yeah. I would say again going on
this is an issue I have with her.
I think again
she's being a little racist without knowing it.
Well, I think if you don't, let's ask the question here. If you have to be involved in the justice system, if you're going to be forced to go to court, or pulled over by a police officer, would you rather be white or black? White. Right? I think most people will agree with that.
Right? That's a definite.
To me, that's kind of one of the things. It's like we all realize that the justice system is skewed a little bit.
That
right?
doesn't have to,
we all realize that.
Do with being anti-racist. Like, we understand that and we want to fix it.
But if we don't acknowge that racism exists in certain aspects of the system, then how can we actually fix the problem? Right?
Okay. So, not talking for the nice lady that I actually really do support and everything like that.
Yeah.
It really sounds like she misused words. And what she was pointing out was we have to actively end racism in our government and in our justice system.
Sure.
And
do you agree that there is racism in the system?
No, there's people.
Sure. Well, I would even argue that there are mechanisms designed, not even people.
Drugs.
You know, again, we talked about the war on drugs.
That is totally designed to lock up minorities.
Absolutely. Drug use of drugs amongst demographics is kind of flat. You know, just as many white people use drugs as black people, but do as many white people
minority neighborhoods and go.
No, of course not, because they're going to go after low-hanging fruit. You're not going to go after people that can hire lawyers that are going to fight and tie up the justice system. You want the conviction. It's about winning, and then winning in the fastest, most efficient manner. What is that? Is that going after poor communities that have to take a public defender who have no idea how the system's going to work and they're going to accept a plea deal?
And they just want
or
their
someone who
paycheck.
makes a ton of money who can hire a big lawyer to drag this case out for years and ultimately make it so, hey, maybe they'll get money from the state because they won. You know?
Yeah.
All right. That's the answer. That's what I was looking for. We'll take a time out.
All right.
Go pee.
Sorry, man. I got kind of confused.